Reading with your kids.
Hey. Oh, wait a minute. It's December. Christmas is right around the corner. I should be saying, ho, ho, ho. Hey, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, coming to you from the beautifully festive neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends all about the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are welcoming back our friend Leslea Wahl to tell us some of her favorite Christmas reads. We're also going to be meeting Anton and family from the Chicago Toy and Game Fair. Before we invite you in, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Little Pearl's Reflection by Sarah Ann Kinnear. Little Pearl Reflections, this is a wonderful series of books that kids who love mysteries and puzzles are going to love this series. Sarah Ann Kinnear has been a teacher and a principal for over 35 years. She's been working in classrooms behind the scenes, educating children and creating innovative curriculum that encourages independent thought and creative problem solving. That's why she created Little Pearl's Reflections. This is a wonderful series of books for kids who love puzzles, for kids who love mysteries, for kids that you want to inspire their imagination. Check it out today, Little Pearl's Reflections by Sarah Ann Kinnear. It's available on Amazon.com. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by One Drop of Kindness by Jeff Kubiak. You heard Jeff speaking on the show. A really, really thoughtful guy, a great caring guy, a great caring teacher and principal. You know, Jeff believes that kindness, for some, it comes really easy, but for others, it can be a struggle. The answer often lies behind a person's story. In One Drop of Kindness, we're going to meet Gus, a one-time orphan who goes through life thinking that hurtful words and actions are the only way to behave and to communicate with others. Interestingly, Gus lives in a town that holds a mysterious secret which finally gets unlocked by something that was hidden away. By unlocking the secret, you too can join the ripple effect of kindness that Gus, along with his school and town, is experiencing with the rest of the world. This book, along with each one of you, will change our world as we know it. It only takes one drop of kindness to fill a heart with love. Check it out today, One Drop of Kindness by our friend Jeff Kubiak. Joining us on the line right now from the beautiful state of Colorado, she is the author of The Perfect Blind Side, and we're really excited that there's going to be a new chapter in that series coming out. Please welcome back to the show, Leslea Wahl. Leslea, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. How are you?
I am wonderful. We always love when Leslea comes on the show. She has some great recommendations for books, faith-based books that we can read with our kids, especially our older kids, our teens and our tweens. And Leslea, I don't know about you, but I think a lot of families forget about the value of reading books together with our tweens or teens. And we're not talking about sitting down snuggled up on the couch, although there's nothing wrong with that. But you know, co-reading with our teens and you know, talking about, reading the same book and talking about it over dinner or listening to the audio version of the book on the way to school or to dance or to soccer. And what do you think, how important do you think that is for us to continue to share these adventures in reading with our kids as they get older?
Well, I think it is one of the best ways to open the lines of communication with kids this age, because sometimes if you just ask them a direct question about something, they kind of withdraw often. But if it's in a storyline, you have a much better way of chatting about it. If it's a different character, it's not them per se, but you can certainly bring up different topics and how you feel about things and get a little bit more of their feel on what's going on through the stories.
Absolutely. I've mentioned my amazing niece who is 15 on the podcast a bunch of times, and you know, if I ask her a direct question sometimes, even like who won the soccer game, nothing. you know. but if we start talking about a movie or a book that we're reading, then, you know, we get that conversation going, and then everything else just spills out. It's you know, like the pot's turned over and all the contents are out on the floor.
Yeah, it's funny how they want to talk, but they don't feel comfortable or know how to engage. But if you have a way to open up the dialogue, suddenly they're much more engaged in it. And you can also sometimes share some personal stories from your own background to, you know, continue that. And I think it's just a great way to come together as a family.
Absolutely. So this is a perfect time of year. We're in December, and we're talking about faith-based books. And what a better time to read faith-based books than here at Christmas.
Yes. And it's also a great gift. Sometimes teens are really hard to buy for. I know at least mine always were. And books can be a wonderful way to give them something and to share your faith and to have something that you guys can communicate with and talk about throughout the year.
Absolutely. So Leslea always comes in with 2 or 3 great books that we can pick up and check out and read. What are we starting with today?
Oh, right. So the first book is actually an anthology. It's by the Catholic Teen Books group, which I'm part of. And there's 14 authors in our group. But this anthology represents 8 different authors, and we all contributed a short Christmas story. And so it's a great way to find new authors that you might enjoy. So this is our second anthology, and this one's called Gifts, Visible and Invisible. So like I said, it's a collection of short stories by different authors. A few of the stories include characters from the author's previous novels. Some are new characters, like my story is. The topics range from historic fiction to contemporary to dystopian. There's some really heartwarming stories, feel-good stories, stories that make you look at Christmas a little differently, and a few exciting adventures. And there's even one story about a dinosaur.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, that one's by Corinna Turner. She has a dystopian series out about kind of a Jurassic World type of thing, and where dinosaurs come back. And this is a really exciting adventure, short little story about this at Christmas time. So it's really fun. So there's all kinds of different stories in here that, you know, everyone should be able to find one that they really enjoy.
Well, I love that idea because I think, you know, Christmas time, we're always thinking about gifts and what do we need to give to this one or give to that one or what am I going to get from these people. And sometimes we forget to take the time to think about the gifts that we've already been blessed with.
Yes, and that brings up my short story in this anthology is called Christmas Angel. And it kind of explores that topic of keeping Christ in Christmas. And my story and several others, the teens kind of see what they have. Like you said, they're blessed and what they already have, and they kind of see what others don't have. And it's kind of a neat way to express the holiday and see it in a slightly different way than the commercial type.
Yeah, you know, that idea of, you know, not only remembering what we've been blessed with, but thinking about what others don't have that we take for granted. We were down in Costa Rica this summer, and my daughter and her boyfriend were with us, and and they're young adults, but they haven't traveled through Central America. This was their first time down there. And we traveled to an area in Costa Rica where there's folks who haven't been blessed with a lot of gifts. And they were real quiet as they were seeing how the people live there. And it was a real education for them. And I think a needed education.
Yeah, we often just kind of live in our little bubble in our suburbs and so forth. And there's even as people in our community would be surprised with on how they live. But yeah, to see another country especially, it's such a great eye-opening experience.
How do you enjoy working with other authors to put together an anthology like this?
Well, this is our second one, and it was so much fun the first time that we decided immediately that we wanted to do another one. So I guess that tells it. Everyone worked together so well, and all the authors in Catholic teen books were all over the United States, and some I've met in person, and others I only know online. But it's such a kindred spirit. I feel like I know them, and we all have, kind of the same values and so forth. And it's just so much fun to work with each other. And everyone has different strengths that we're able to pull together. Some are really great at marketing, some are great at editing, so it's such a great way to work together, and hopefully we'll have a few more.
That's wonderful. So the first in your list of suggested books is the anthology Gifts Visible and Invisible by the Catholic Teen Authors Group. What else do we have?
So the next one is called From Afar, and the author is Roger Thomas. And this is a fascinating fictional look into the three wise men. We all know about these mysterious men, but there actually aren't a lot of known facts about them. Mm-hmm. And this author takes us on a fictional journey into how these men might have known about the birth of the king and why they were even interested in a Jewish king. I was expecting an interesting story, but was really blown away by how exciting this adventurous tale was. And I really couldn't put it down. Historic fiction is always interesting, but this one, getting a glimpse into the time period when Jesus was born, the evil corruption of Herod and how the communities worshipped pagan gods, it was really interesting.
Yeah, and just the idea of travel. I just mentioned that we traveled down to Costa Rica, and it's kind of exotic, but it wasn't really, we had the comforts. There was a plane and airports and police and, roads and all that kind of thing. Traveling back in the day of Jesus' birth was quite a bit different.
Yeah, and this author, it kind of shows how it might have been and the different communities they would have had to travel through. And he makes it, like I said, an adventurous tale where, some people are after them and, they have to escape and they have all these things going on. And each of the three wise men were such unique characters. Melchior was this elder, gentle teacher. Balthazar was this brilliant, brave person. But my favorite was the youthful Gaspar. He was like this soldier who just was really cool. I think all kids would really enjoy all the stories with them. But they also had two supporting characters that were just fantastic. A soldier kind of watched over them and a young boy. And between all of them, they really keep the story moving. And most of the story is their journey there and why they kind of decided to make the journey. They were each personally looking for something specific in their lives and were drawn to this star. And then at the very end, we do meet Mary and Joseph, and they were just beautifully portrayed. And it was just such a great way to think of the story in a slightly different way.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love books that, can kind of put us into that time frame. And that's something that I really encourage kids and adults to do too. And especially if we're at church and we're listening to the gospel for the 8,000th time, instead of just sitting there listening to it, imagine yourself in that scene and imagine what it was like, and imagine being on that journey with the three kings and meeting Mary and Joseph and the Christ child at that time. I think it can really change the way we look at the story and at our faith.
I totally agree. You're right. When you hear the same scriptures and the stories over and over, you get kind of used to them. But if you can just kind of think of them in a slightly different way and put yourself there, really can bring it to life, and you feel the fears that they might have had or the excitement, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's one of the routines that I do in my show is a retelling of the story of the Good Samaritan. I talk about this guy, the Great Maritini, and we actually published a picture book based on that routine. But it's really fun for me when I'm in a Catholic school or even in a public school. The kids are hearing about this somewhat clumsy magician and he finally is successful doing a trick, and then he leaves and he's going to another town. And there's one point in the story where you see these little light bulbs go off in the kids' heads, and you can almost hear them say, Oh, I know where this came from. And it does. It's like, that's that story. And yeah, I'm thinking about it in a different way right now, and it's kind of more meaningful for me right now.
Yeah, and they'll probably never hear the story the same again. They'll always have that connection.
Yeah, and the Three Kings. It's not so much here, but the Three Kings Day, the Feast of the Epiphany, is such an important holiday in Latin America that this would be a super story for any kids living here in the States that celebrate Three Kings Day to kind of pick up and read, and that during that time between Christmas and the Feast of the Epiphany.
Oh, absolutely! Yeah, it was great, fantastic adventure.
So, what's the third book on our list?
And the third one is called Treachery and Truth by Katie Huth Jones. And this one is another historic fiction. It's we all know the Christmas Carol, or most people do probably, Good King Wenceslas. But I don't know if everyone knows it was actually based on a real king, a Czech duke, I should say. Mm-hmm. And this is the story of him. Katie does a wonderful job of bringing his real life into the story and then kind of reflecting the Christmas Carol too. It's a beautiful story about this. He was a beloved Czech duke, and in fact, if you go over there, which Katie has, they have statues for him all over the place because he's very well known and loved. And he was a faithful Christian, but he was during a time when there was a lot of pagan gods, betrayal, lots of wars going on. And the neat thing about this story, it's written through the eyes of his servant, which kind of puts a different spin on it. Mm. And the servant then kind of learns about Christianity through the Duke. And though it's a work of fiction, it's based on, like I said, the known facts of this historic fiction figure and draws the reader into his life.
Fantastic. I again, we were talking about, I think historical fiction is a really great way for us to kind of dig deeper into history, and it's certainly a lot different than sitting in a classroom and listening to a bunch of facts being spewed out.
Mm-hmm. And the other interesting little tidbit with Treachery and Truth, Katie is one of the authors in the anthology that I talked about before, and her little short story is a modern day story, but the character in that story hears the Christmas Carol and starts to find out a little bit more about Good King Wenceslas. So they're kind of tied together, but completely separate. But it's kind of fun little way if you like them both.
Awesome. Now, I understand that you are giving the world a Christmas present. There's a new chapter in the Perfect Blind Side that's coming out.
Yes, I'm so excited. It's been in the works for a while, but the next Jake and Sophie story is coming out, and the new book will be called Extreme Blindside. Ooh. And it my main characters, Jake and Sophie, and Jake is a snowboarder, if people don't know, Olympic snowboarder, and Sophie is the girl he meets in the town he moves to. And in this adventure, he is participating in an extreme sporting event, and she goes with him, and they become part of another mystery there when some of the premier athletes are being targeted and so forth. So they have to figure out what's going on.
Ooh, adventure. I love it.
Yeah, I always love adventures and mysteries, so that's what I always write.
Awesome. And now, where can folks find out more about Extreme Blindside and find out more about everything that Leslea Wahl is up to?
Sure, I guess the best place is my website, which you can get there through my name, which my name's spelled a little different, but LeslieWahl.com. Or you can also get there through ministrythroughmystery.com. So either one will get to my website, and all my book reviews and all the my own books are on there. And if anyone subscribes to the newsletter, they actually get a free little short story. So that's kind of a fun little bonus.
That is a nice little Christmas gift. And the Catholic Teen Authors Group, where can folks go to connect with all of you there?
Yeah, and that's CatholicTeenBooks.com.
CatholicTeenBooks.com. All right. Well, these are some great suggestions, great holiday gifts, great books for you to co-read with your teens and tweens. A great way to open up some conversations about faith. And today we talked about Gifts, Visible and Invisible, From Up Far by Roger Thomas, Treachery and Truth by Katie Huth Jones, and of course, Gifts, Visible and Invisible is an anthology by the Catholic Teen Authors Group. And don't forget Extreme Blindside, the brand new book from Leslea Wahl. Leslea, thanks for being back on the show. Merry Christmas.
Thanks so much. Merry Christmas.
In just a moment, we're going to be introducing you to a beautiful family that we met at the Chicago Toy and Game Fair. They're going to be telling us, in the spirit of Leslie's visit here today, Anton and his family, they're going to be telling us a little bit how they use reading to teach their faith to their wonderful son. We had such a great time at the Chicago Toy and Game Fair, and we're really excited that we're going back to Chicago in February 8th and 9th. We are going to be part of Chicagoland's Kids Expo at the Schaumburg Convention Center in Schaumburg, Illinois. I've been told that this is really, really a fun Kids Expo, and we're really excited to be part of it. Our friends, the Good Kids Club, are going to be performing. I am going to be performing both on Saturday and Sunday. There's going to be a whole lot of totally interactive things for you and your kids to do together. So check it out. It's the Kids Expo at the Schaumburg Convention Center, February 8th and 9th. Be sure to come out and be a part of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are back at the Chicago Toy and Game Fair, and I just ran into a beautiful family here. First, we'll speak to the head of the family here. Hey, what's your name?
Kobe.
Can you introduce us to the folks that you're with?
My dad and my stepmom.
Excellent. Let me find out who they are. Dad, what's your name?
Anton.
Anton, and what's your name?
Ellie.
Ellie. Anton, you were saying that you love reading to your son. Tell me what's so much fun about it.
Oh, well, usually we read not just to read, but to learn things, right?
Uh-huh.
So yesterday, he's actually going through First Communion right now, so he was reading and learned the Hail Mary, right? So that was a lot of fun because, he's sitting there practicing, memorizing it. But going on through the years, we've been reading all the time. That's something we try to instill in him all the time. Because, we like to learn things. So
Yep.
Not just reading stories, but, learning about animals, right? All the sharks and dinosaurs. Who knows how many dinosaur books he has. So it's just always been a good learning tool for us.
That's awesome. Now, what do you love to read together?
Animal books.
Animal book. What's your favorite animal?
Hippo.
A hippo?
Yeah.
What? I always thought hippos are like really, really cute and cuddly, but they're like really kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like huge and everything.
Yeah.
Now, do you also read? I know you read with your dad. You read with stepmom too?
Yeah.
Yeah? Are there certain... Do you like to read certain books with your dad and different books with your stepmom?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What kind of books do you like to read with your stepmom?
The animal books.
The animal books, yeah. And stepmom, what about you? What is it about reading that you love so much?
I get to engage with him and
Uh-huh.
spend one-on-one time together
Uh-huh.
and just cuddle and
Yeah.
like a love time.
It's a great way to bond together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Dad, one of the things we also talk about here in the show is that, like you said, reading with your kids is a great way to learn. But I also think it's a wonderful way to do what you're doing, which is it can instill values and faith. It's just a super way to do that.
Yeah. I mean, reading, learning, it's all tied to, books and reading. Obviously, you do that when you grow up and you go through school, but you can use it it's a tool to accomplish a lot of things. Whether you want to learn about something new, if you're interested in something already and you just want to learn more about it, or you just like enjoying. Like we also recently got into Pokemon too, so you can read a whole bunch of stuff about that. He's really into that right now. So just, interest, learning, faith, right? Anything. I mean, books are always the core, and obviously now there's more audio books and stuff like that, but books in general as a tool has just always been a learning tool since the beginning of time, or since it was started. So.
Yeah. And I love the fact, Stepmom, that you were talking about how wonderful it is just to cuddle and to build that bond together.
Yeah, it spends like a lot of quality time together.
Yeah. Now, buddy, what's your favorite Pokemon?
There's a lot there.
Charizard.
All right. I have to remember. I can't remember what my son's favorite Pokemon was, but I know by the time he stopped collecting the Pokemon cards, his stack was taller than you.
Oh, wow.
So, well, thank you so much for being on our show.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Lorenzo Gomez. He's going to be telling us about his really powerful book, Tafoya Toro, 3 Years of Fear. That is the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so very, very wonderful. Of course, we want to thank our guests. We want to thank Leslea Wahl. Be sure to check out all of the books that Leslea told us about today. Also want to thank Anton and his beautiful family that we met out at the Chicago Toy and Game Fair. Want to thank our sponsors, Sarah and Kinnear. Be sure to check out Little Pros Reflection. Also want to thank the author of One Drop of Kindness, Jeff Kubiak. And of course, I want to thank my amazing producer, Fatima Khan, for all she does for the podcast. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support that she gives me. I want to thank Augie the doggy for having my back here in the studio. But most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast